Hello, in this little video I want to talk a bit about a model that lets us look at how social networks could influence the spread of a disease in a population. To start with, I am not a epidemiologist, and the model I'm talking about is rather crude, so don't use it to make life or death decisions. But a crude model has the advantage of, we can really look at what's going on. And I thought the results were interesting. So that's what I want to talk about in this video. There's a lot of interest in models for the spread of a disease given the current COVID-19 crisis. And discussions typically start off with a basic SIR model. And in such a model, there are three groups in the population: those who are susceptible, those who can get the disease but are healthy now, those who are infective, they have the disease and can spread it to others, and then those after they got the disease, they hopefully got better and became immune, and then they're removed from the model in the sense that they can't get the disease anymore. And worst case scenario is they're not getting better, but they are dead, which has the same effect of removing them from the model. Okay, now in a basic SIR model, an infective agent just picks a susceptible agent at random. So they're just free floating particles, and that is not how real people work. Real people are embedded in a social network. There are a limited number of people you have a lot of contact with. You live in the same house, or you work at the same company, or you go to the same school, and those are the people, your friends, your colleagues, your family members that you have a lot of contact with, and those are the people you're more likely to infect. And that's kind of the property that I want to look at. Now, here we have such a very stylized social network, and the dots are the people, and some of them are connected, but this person is not connected to that person. There's no line going between them. And we can see that in most cases, each person is connected to four other persons. And there are a couple of properties of this stylized network that we can look at. So one of the things is if two persons are connected to the same person, this could be me, and that could be one colleague, and that could be another colleague. Well, we're in the same company or the same university. So they're also colleagues of each other. If they're colleagues of me, then they're also colleagues of each other. This could be one of my sons, and that could be another of my sons. Well, they share now the same father. That's me. So they're also brothers. And this is something that happens quite a lot in real social networks. These kinds of cliques that friends of friends are also friends. But that's not all of them. There are also some of these connections are really outside of the box. Those are those friends that you just happen to have. They don't actually fit in the rest of your network, but they're still nice. They're still your friends. They just don't fit in the rest of your network. Yeah? So the weirdos. And they will play an important role in the spread of our disease, as we will see. Now, how am I going to introduce this kind of network in my SIR model? And to do that, I used a so-called agent-based model. In an agent-based model, we are in a computer creating persons, and they follow very simple rules. And once we've made the rules, we just let them go and see what happens. So we need rules. Right, we need rules. So let's start making rules. So we have agents, and these agents could be in one of three states. They could be susceptible, infective, or removed. Let's call them recovered. Let's be hopeful. And this is where the name SIR model comes from. Right, and one of the things that we want to add, they are part of a network, so they can only affect through connections in that network. And one of the things that we look at in a network is the so-called degree, the number of people with whom you are connected. And in our little example network, we had a degree of 4. Right, now we have a disease. We have a disease. And that disease spreads, and some disease spreads very fast and others slower, and we measure that with a R0, a basic reproductive number. Well, you can think of that as a person, an infective person, is surrounded by susceptible people, and then you count the average number of people he is going to infect until the disease is over. In case of COVID, a commonly called number is 2.5. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty around this number, so it could be much smaller, much higher. Actually, a lot of the policies in social distancing, for instance, are aimed at bringing this number down. But this will get us started. And the other thing we're going to look at is the disease lasts for a given number of days, and here we just use a number 5. And that allows us to get results fairly quickly, so I don't have to show that many networks. Right. So that's the basics. And we needed rules. Okay, so let's start with the rule. And we do each day, each infective person looks at all neighbors. And when he does that, he has a chance P to infect that neighbor. Okay, so we have a parameter P, a chance of infecting. Now we need to find that. And actually, we have all we need right here. And so each day, each infective person looks at all neighbors. How many? Well, that's the degree, 4. And how long will an infective agent do that? Well, for 5 days. And so in total, an infective agent has 4 times 5, and that's 20 opportunities to infect. And that should lead to 2.5 infections. And that's our basic reproductive number. Okay, now in that case, each opportunity should be associated with a chance of 2.5 divided by 20 is 1/8 chance of infecting. If each opportunity has 1/8 of a chance of resulting in an infection, then 20 opportunities will lead to 2.5 infections. All right, so let's see how these rules play out. Here we are in our network again. Now there are 2 infective agents, and we can go to time 2. We can see, well, now this person is also infected, and time 3, nothing happens. Time 4, hey, here's an infection, there's an infection. Time 5, infection spreads. And now we can look at how this rather cliquey part of the network really inhibits the spread of the disease. So if someone is surrounded by infective agents, then he would on average infect 2.5 people. Now, but look at this person, for instance, or that person. Each day they look at all their neighbors, but all of them are either recovered or have the disease. They have no opportunities to spread it anymore. And it's this closely knit network that really slows down the disease. There's a lot of redundancy here. Now, let's continue time a bit and look at this person. Now he gets infected. And he's surrounded by susceptible people. And so if we're looking here, each person is surrounded by people he can no longer infect anymore. And they're basically done. They're not getting the full infective potential. They're not using that. But here, this person can really get the full infective potential out of there and get close to that 2.5 infections that the nominal basic reproductive rate tells us the disease should have. So that's one of the things. So the close-knit part, the redundant part of the network really slows it down by reducing the number of people a person can infect. But these long distance ties allows the disease to speed up again and to get closer to its full potential. Right. So now let's look at a couple of other graphs that are fairly common with when we're talking about SIR models. So here, for instance, we have 3 curves. On the horizontal axis, there's time. Here the disease starts. And this is a percentage of the population on the vertical axis, and the blue line are those who are susceptible, and then the yellow line, and the blue line are those who get the disease, and this is the curve that we want to flatten. When people are talking about let's flatten the curve, then this is the curve we want to flatten. And so initially there's a growth in the disease, and it reaches a peak, and then it goes down again. And then there is the green part. Those are the ones that got the disease, and then recovered, hopefully. Right. Here we show the results of a slightly larger model. Here we have 10,000 agents, and each agent can connect to 10 other people. And the degree in this case is 10. But the basic reproductive number is still 2.5. And we have here only 5% of the connections are long distance ties. So this is a very close-knit network with very few long distance connections. And that's one of the nice things we can do with agent-based models. So we can take one of these parameters, keep everything else constant, and try to change that. So let's what we typically do with SIR models is we're trying to change the reproductive number, but let's keep that as is. And with the basic reproductive number, we're basically modeling social distancing. But if we keep that constant, but instead look at increasing or decreasing the number of long distance ties, we could think of that as closing airports, or discouraging making unnecessary business trips, or that kind of thing. And for instance, if we increase the number of long distance ties, something we don't want to do, as we can see here, and here we have 25% long distance ties, we see the peak is much higher. We get there much quicker, and the disease is over much quicker. But we get a much higher peak. So here we have about 25% of the population has the disease at the same time. Think about that. 1 in 4 people in the population is sick. That's bad. And so this is not a scenario we want to end up in. This is much nicer. I thought this was interesting, the way in which we could get big effects on the spread of a disease, not by changing the properties of that disease, but by changing properties of the network. And I hope you find that equally interesting and equally entertaining. In the next video, I am going to go through the code that I use to create these simulations. And if that's what you're interested in, I hope to see you there.